in the hushed shadows of Oradour-sur-Glane, where echoes of the past linger like wisps of smoke, the souls of the forsaken speak. Here time stands still, and the weight of sorrow hangs in the air like a shroud. This abandoned village, left untouched since the fateful day of June 10, 1944, bears the scars of memories unspeakable, haunted by the specters of lives extinguished and dreams shattered. The crumbling stones serve not only as remnants of a place once vibrant with laughter and love, but also as silent witnesses to a tragedy that reverberates through time, an echo that calls out to anyone willing to listen. Welcome back to Ghost Stories of the Battles, where history intertwines with the supernatural, revealing the tales of those who lived and died on the edges of time. As we delve deep into the shadows, we invite you to tread carefully through the corridors of memory, for Oradour-sur-Glane is a place where the past refuses to rest. Here, those who suffered the unimaginable still linger, their stories intertwined with the faint whispers of the living, forming an unbreakable bond that defies the boundaries of death. In June 1944, at the height of World War II, the village of Oradour-sur-Glane was ravaged by Nazi soldiers. On that harrowing day, the entire population fell victim to an unimaginable atrocity: 642 men, women, and children murdered in cold blood. It forever etched the tragedy into the fabric of French history. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets, those who were once vibrant and full of life were extinguished in mere hours. The village was left in ruins, a stark reminder of the horrors of war that humanity seldom wishes to remember, its ghostly remnants preserved as a memorial to those lost. Today, visitors come from far and wide to witness the physical remains of the village, where the past and present entwine. They wander through the charred remains of homes and shops, captivated by the solemnity of the place, yet often unaware of the palpable sorrow that hangs in the air. It is said that those with open hearts can feel the weight of history pressing upon them, the voices of the fallen rising like fog from the ashes. As we step into the ruins today, we will meet a historian who seeks to uncover the echoes of the past, only to find that the past is not so easily laid to rest. Our first story begins in the present, where the boundaries of time blur and the living commune with the dead. It is here that Dr. Claire Fontaine, an esteemed historian with a passion for forgotten stories and lost souls, ventures forth into the stillness of Oradour-sur-Glane. With every step, she is drawn deeper into the village's haunting embrace, where each fragment of history is imbued with sorrow, and every corner may hide the whispers of those who lived, loved, and were lost. Join us now as we journey alongside Claire into the heart of darkness, where her quest for knowledge awakens something far more profound than mere historian encounter with the very essence of grief and remembrance that defines Oradour-sur-Glane, a testament to the enduring human spirit amidst unrelenting tragedy. Dr. Claire Fontaine stepped out of her rental car, the chill of the early morning air prickling her skin as she gazed upon the haunting ruins of Oradour-sur-Glane. A gentle breeze rustled through the remnants of buildings, whispering secrets long forgotten. Despite the sun's tentative rise, the village felt ensconced in its own realm, suspended in time. The cracked stone walls and crumbling facades loomed before her like sentinels, guardians of the sorrow that so permeated this place. Claire had dedicated her life to the study of history as a way to understand the complexities of humanity's darkest moments. Yet, standing in the remnants of a village that bore witness to unimaginable horror, she felt a gravity that overwhelmed her, a tangible sorrow hanging in the air like a thick fog. The history of Oradour-sur-Glane was unyielding, etched into the very stones under her feet. On June 10, 1944, this tranquil village had become a graveyard for its own people, who had fallen prey to a Nazi massacre. It was a day marked forever in the annals of French history, one that reverberated through time. Now, as a historian on a quest to unveil the stories of those lost, she felt like an intruder in a sacred space, an interloper sifting through the ashes of the past. With her notebook clutched tightly in hand, Claire hesitated at the entrance of the village, her heart heavy with grief. "This is a remembrance," she whispered to herself, taking a deep breath. With each step forward, she felt the echoes of lost lives, remnants of whispers lost in time. As Claire ventured deeper into the village, the atmospheric weight intensified. She found herself surrounded by the remnants of homes, the streets lined with crumbling walls that bore witness to laughter, love, and life before the dark shadow of war engulfed it. She made her way toward the Église Saint-Martin, its stone exterior strangely serene amidst the devastation. The heavy wooden door creaked open, and the cool, dim air within pressed upon her like a wisp of sorrow. Inside, the pews where villagers once prayed stood empty, dust floating aimlessly in the sunbeams that filtered through shattered, stained glass windows. Claire closed her eyes, allowing her mind to conjure images of the pasta congregation filled with life, laughter echoing in the air. The sound of children's giggles must have mingled with the hymns of faith, yet now, only silence gripped the space, heavy with the weight of lost souls. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, and Claire felt an inexplicable chill creeping down her spine. A distant cry, soft yet piercing, broke the quietude, sending a shiver coursing through her. She opened her eyes, a frown knitting her brows, scanning the empty sanctuary. Was it merely the echo of her own thoughts, or did the village itself mourn alongside her? "Goodness," she murmured, shaking her head as if to clear her thoughts. Perhaps the stories of those who perished here had entwined themselves with the very essence of the place. She turned to leave the church, her heart pounding in her chest as she moved toward the one artifact that captivated her the most, the stilled clock of the village square. The clock was a grim reminder of that fateful day, its hands frozen in time at precisely 1:30 p.m., encapsulating the moment when life as the villagers had known it abruptly ended. Claire's feet quickened as she approached, drawn by an invisible force. The thorough quiet hung thick around her, yet her heart raced. As she reached the clock, she crouched down, brushing away the remnants of winter leaves that had gathered multi-layered over time. The sensation of being watched washed over her, a pulsating energy in the air surrounding her. Claire pressed her palm against the cool metal surface, feeling an overwhelming flood of sadness rush through her. In that instant, glittering images swam before her eyes of vibrant market day, children playing hide and seek, laughter spilling forth as villagers gathered. But with every beat of her heart, chaos crept into her vision like ink in water. Flickers of men in uniforms, the cries of terrified mothers and children, and the wrenching realization that joy could so swiftly become despair. "Please no," Claire gasped, swaying slightly as an oppressive presence closed in around her. The cries, distant yet growing nearer, twisted her heart with their unyielding sorrow. The weight of grief pushed down on her chest like a leaden blanket, and she stumbled backward, feeling her vision dim as the world around her faded. Visions engulfed her in moments of surreal clarity. She saw the villagers, their faces reflecting terror and chaos as the Nazi soldiers approached, a violent tide sweeping through their tranquil lives. Claire felt the surge of emotions that weren't her own, fear constricting her throat, desperation clawing at her heart, and a heart-wrenching resolve to survive even as the horrors unfolded. Suddenly, she was enveloped in darkness. The cries grew louder, a cacophony echoing through the annals of her mind. Time warped around her, and she too felt the weight of dread as villagers were led to their fate, helplessness flooding their eyes. She sank deeper into the memory until it became her own vivid reality, where she was no longer just an observer, but a part of the tragedy itself. Her knees hit the cold ground as she gasped for breath, her heart racing in expectation of the inevitable. "No, don't take them," echoed through her mind, a desperate plea that lingered long after the vision faded, leaving her breathless, disoriented, and trembling in fear. As suddenly as it began, the horrific vision released her grip. Claire was back in the village square, the weight of sorrow clinging to her like a second skin. The cries had silenced, but her heart continued to ache, a gnawing emptiness somewhere deep within. It was a vision that would haunt her for the rest of her days, bearing witness to the lives extinguished that day. Claire pushed herself up, wiping the sweat from her brow, the cold reality of the village pressing down once again. She stumbled a few steps before steadying herself against the stilled clock, her heart still racing, and tears streaming down her cheeks. "Why did I come here?" she whispered, her voice barely audible in the cold air. It was a question larger than her immediate surroundings, larger than the horror she had witnessed, set an inquiry into the very nature of remembrance and grief that thrummed through the heart of history like veins of molten rock. "I must share your stories," Claire spoke softly, an odd conviction anchored in her voice, trembling yet resolute. "For the souls of those lost, their stories should never fade into ash. They deserve to be remembered, honored, and echoed through time." With heavy steps, she walked away from the clock, every footfall a poignant reminder that those who were lost remained forever intertwined with the land. The morning sun broke through the clouds, spilling golden light over the ruins, yet Claire's heart remained shrouded in shadow, a vow to carry their stories with her, to give voice to the voiceless. As she left Oradour-sur-Glane, looking back at the village that had opened her heart to the pains of history, she realized that the specters of the past were not mere shadows, but the living reminder of the consequences of hatred and urgency to share the truths learned from history. As she navigated the village's winding paths towards her car, it was not just personal grief she carried with her, but the weight of collective memorized echoes of eternal ashes that had imprinted upon her soul. Claire sank into the driver's seat, her breath still shallow as she contemplated everything she had witnessed. The echoes of Oradour-sur-Glane were embedded in her heart, a weight that would resonate within her for years to come. "I promise to tell your stories," she vowed quietly to the winds that rustled through the village, already feeling the call of the past guiding her forward. Soon she would share the stories of those who were lost, but first, she would take a moment to breathe, to let the layers of sorrow wash over her. Yet in that fateful village, new voices awaited their turn to be heard, fragile whispers that hinted at untold tales of despair, a witness of war forever entwined, with the heart of one woman yearning for justice. And so we turn back in time to another witness of the tragedy, waiting to recount her own harrowing tale. In the deepening twilight of a June evening in 1944, the quiet village of Oradour-sur-Glane held its breath. Nestled within the stone walls of Église Saint-Martin, Lucy Lemming crouched in the shadows alongside her two young children, Marie and Paul. The weight of history hung thick in the air, but all they felt was the frantic thudding of their own hearts. Outside, the world was unraveling as terror encroached, the distant sound of shouts merging with the ominous rumble of boots on cobblestone streets. "Stay close," Lucy whispered, pulling her children closer as the distressing sounds drew nearer. She could hear the cold commands of the German soldiers, their harsh accents echoing in her mind like thunderclouds rolling in on the horizon. A burning knot of fear twisted in her stomach as the flickering candlelight cast shifting shadows of the church's interior, creating the illusion of movement, of life, in the midst of paralyzing dread. Each burst of noisy footfall embarked commencing an icy wave over her skin, and she felt the flicker of panic rise in her chest. "Mammon, are we safe?" Mary's small voice trembled, barely a breath above a whisper. Lucy touched her daughter's cheek, the warmth of her skin a stark contrast to the chilling reality outside. "Yes, my love. We are safe here." But her words felt hollow, drifting into the void where certainty should have been. It was a promise she was desperate to keep, even as doubt gnawed at the edges of her mind. Time passed in agonizing slow motion, each minute stretched into an eternity. The children clung to her, their wide eyes scanning the dimly lit sanctuary of intricately carved altar, the once vibrant stained glass that remained dull and lifeless in the fading light. With her heart hammering loud enough to echo in her ears, Lucy could not shake the sense of impending doom wrapping around them like a shroud. The air inside Église Saint-Martin grew thick with the scent of candle wax and despair. Yet, as the sounds of chaos drew closer, the distressing cries blurred into something else, a ghostly chorus of the past that whispered through the church's walls, begging to be heard. She squeezed her children's hands, speaking comfort through her fear. "Pray with me. Pray for Papa and for everyone." Tremors of unease ran through her as she felt a strange flicker of movement by the door, caught by a peripheral glance. For a moment, she thought she had seen a figure fleetingly dance through the doorway, an ephemeral soldier, shimmering in and out of focus. Lucy blinked, and the figure was gone, vanished like a wisp of smoke in the night. Anguish clawed at her throat. Desperately, she fought to stay grounded, wrestling with an inner turmoil that threatened to swallow her whole. Her thoughts drifted to Pierre, her husband, who had gone to help another village prepare for the roadblocks. Would he return? Where was he now? Had he become a ghost of this night as well? The cries of soldiers outside grew louder, merging with something unearthly, an echoing chant that made her shiver. Lucy tightened her hold on the children, drawing them closer as spectral shadows danced on the walls. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, and she could almost see the ghostly figures of villagers long gone, standing witness to the terror that enveloped her. "Mammon!" Paul whimpered, melting into her side as he sensed the fear dancing in the air. Lucy could feel the chill creeping into her bones. The air was electric, pregnant with an unspeakable fear that threatened to break like a wave upon the shore. "Mammon, I want to go home." Home. The word itself felt like a dagger in her heart. How could she reassure them when she felt a semblance of home slipping away into the darkness? Outside, the echoes grew frantic. The soldiers shouted, their voices climbing in pitch as though heralding the end. Lucy prayed ferociously, clutching her children close, willing the church walls to protect them from the reality encroaching outside. They were not just walls, they were a fortress of hope, a sanctuary against the maelstrom of terror. Suddenly, a roar of laughter floated through the church, a mirth that felt entirely out of place. Lucy's heart squeezed painfully in her chest. It was a cruel trick of her Minda memory made manifest among the tangible fears of the presentas ghostly children played, their laughter cascading like soft rain. But as she turned toward the sound, they vanished, leaving behind an oppressive silence that clung heavily in the air. The demonic visage of reality crashed into her thoughts as the door of the church shook under the weight of chaos outside. Lucy's breath hovered between her lips, suspended in fear as she covertly peered to the altar where a spectral figure stood, her husband, Pierre. "Lucy, run. Take the children and find safety." His voice was filled with urgency, but mingled with it was an ethereal sadness that clawed deep into her very soul. It sliced through the shroud of her fears, invigorating her with a need to act. "Pierre, is it really you?" Lucy's voice cracked, the energy of his presence radiating warmth even against the chill that permeated the air. Her eyes brimmed with tears, clouded by both love and despair. "They're outside. They'll find us. I can't leave you. Flee, Lucy. They are coming." His apparition shimmered like a candle in a gust of wind, flickering in and out of existence. Save our children. I love you. Lucy felt the weight of his echo bear down on her, urging her to react, to choose action over paralysis. The urgency in his apparition ignited a fire in her veins. With a deep breath, she shook off the specter of fear, her maternal instinct surging to life. Come, my loves. We must escape now. Grabbing her children, Lucy rushed toward the door, her heart pounding wildly within her chest. Together, they rushed into the fading light, seeking refuge from the darkness that loomed, leaving behind the echoes of hope and despair intertwined. But the outside world erupted as they stepped into the havoc. Soldiers and phantom figures clashed in a blur of violence, reality twisted with specters of the past battling for definition. Lucy clung tightly to Marie and Paul, her eyes darting around the chaos around them, spectral faces mingling with real horrors as they all surged toward safety. As she turned to flee, her heart ached for a semblance of what had been. But hope surged with determination. They had to live. Just ahead, she saw a glimpse of a moonlit path that shimmered like a promise. It urged her on. Hold tight. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Lucy propelled her children forward, weaving through the chaos. As shadows pulsed around them, husbands and fathers calling for their loved ones, mothers lost to the horrors of the night, all intertwining with the specters of the living and the dead. Then her gaze caught sight of an unholy vision, soldiers bearing down on her, weapons poised. Panic seized her limbs, and just as the danger closed in, she felt a familiar hand on her shoulder peer, his spectral form radiant with love. Go! His voice thundered through the maelstrom, propelling Lucy forward as she shielded her children. In that heartbeat, she felt the unbreakable bond of their family manifesting against the backdrop of horror. As Lucy darted through the shadows, she felt the air shift, the warmth of her husband's spirit intertwining with their flight. Through the cacophony, she prayed heavenward, imploring the forces that be to save them. For within the darkness, light flickered a beacon in the abyss. Let him guide us. The chant echoed inside her, unfurling courage with each breath. For we are alive, we will survive. Fate hung in the balance, and as they slipped into the depths of the night, she could feel the presence of countless spirits, guiding her away from the turmoil, from the flames consuming Oradour-sur-Glane, ensuring survival against the overwhelming tide of despair. And then, as dawn broke, the dust settled over Oradour-sur-Glane, leaving behind Silencian oppressive silence that shrouded the village in an eternal nightmare, an aftermath of unimaginable loss. The remnant of Lucy's desperate flight and Pierre's ethereal embrace would forever echo in that hushed space, where trauma clung to the air like a lingering specter. The stories of that day would never be forgotten. Generations would rise and fall, and the spirits would continue to whisper. Lucy's prayer for safety morphed into the wishes of many, urging those who came after to remember, to honor, and to share their storious and unbreakable tapestry of love, woven into the very fabric of a place marked by sorrow. As the years unfolded into the future, and the village became a memorial, the shadows would tell the tale of those who fought to hide, reminding those who listened of the pain and the hope that intertwined across the ages. It would be Henry, a local resident of the 1980s, who would stand amidst the ruins, guiding others through the echoes of innocent laughter turned to echoes of loss, and in his heart, he would carry Lucy's story forward. In the muted light of the late afternoon sun, Henry Marceau stood at the threshold of what was once a vibrant village, now frozen in the embrace of silence. The stark ruins of Oradour-sur-Glane loomed before him, conjuring bittersweet memories from a life he had known, rooted deeply in the shared history of this place. As a local resident in the 1980s, he had spent countless hours learning about the tragedy that befell his community in June 1944, Yet every visit felt like stepping into a river of unending sorrow, his heart splitting with the weight of loss. "Welcome to Oradour-sur-Glane," he said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. A small group of tourists gathered around him, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease, their eyes darting across the skeletal remains of houses and streets now haunted with memories. Henry could feel the heavy atmosphere settle over Thima's palpable, as the dust that danced in the beams of sunlight filtering through the trees. "What happened here?" a young woman asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as though afraid that speaking too loudly would shatter the mournful stillness. "Ah, it's a story of innocence lost," Henry replied, his gaze drifting toward the dilapidated facade of the Église Saint-Martin. On that fateful day, the village was filled with laughter and life. Children played in the shadow of the church, and parents went about their daily routines. Then the storm came. Nazi soldiers descended upon us, and everything changed in an instant. His words hung in the air, each sentence crafting a tapestry of loss, woven from the memories of those who had lived through that horrid day. As he recounted the villagers' desperate attempts to escape, he felt a murmur beneath the silence, a whisper of something untold. Henry could almost hear the children's laughter echoing, a fleeting note breaking through the weight of despair that clouded the village. As he guided the group forward, he paused near a small, rusted sign. "This was once the town square," he explained, swallowing hard against a swell of emotion. "Can you imagine? On a warm summer day, there would have been merchants peddling their wares, and mothers calling their kids home for lunch." Henry's voice cracked, and he felt the weight of his memories crash upon him like waves against a rocky shore. The group, enraptured by his tale yet increasingly unsettled, listened with rapt attention. Each answered question seemed to revive the spirits of the past, staving off the encroaching silence that blanketed Oradour-sur-Glane. Henry continued down the main street, pointing out significant landmarks. The homes left untouched, the clock that had stopped at 1:30 p.m., eternally marking a moment of catastrophe. As they approached the ruins of the old schoolhouse, a hush fell over the group. An inexplicable chill coursed through Henry. He glanced at the distant trees swaying slightly in the breeze, but the air felt heavy, as if the village itself were breathing, mourning its fallen. Just then, laughter clear and echoing broke the somber atmosphere, as if the very essence of childhood innocence had returned. Henry felt his heart race, caught off guard by such an incongruous sound. The tourists exchanged glances, some chuckling nervously, but then, just as quickly as it had come, the laughter faded, leaving only silence behind. "Did you hear that?" the young woman whispered, her eyes wide. Henry nodded slowly, a chill creeping beneath his skin. "Yes, it's as if the spirits of the children refused to fade away." Interesting how the laughter of innocence could surface in this exhalation of suffering, a reminder of what had been lost. Struggling against the mounting tension within, he pressed on, leading the visitors deeper into the village. With every step they took, Henry was reminded that the souls of Oradour-sur-Glane were always present, shaping the fabric of the air around them. Moving toward the remnants of a house that had once been filled with family, Henry's throat tightened, recalling the stories of mothers who had shielded their children with love in their final moments. A trembling hand rose to his temple as he closed his eyes, conjuring vivid images of joy shared in mundane days before the horror he felt real, tangible. Suddenly, echoes of clarity broke his thoughts. From behind him came a clamor of footsteps, mixed with distant cries. Henry opened his eyes wide, the laughter replaced by a cacophony that unnerved all gathered. Faces turned pale as the specter of reality collided with endurance. "Stay close," he urged, his voice almost lost amidst the dimming sun descending lower in the sky. The personal memories of sorrow cocooned him even tighter, the spectral remnants of laughter mingling with whispers of loss, memories colliding with the living, a struggle for existence in this ethereal battlefield. "Is it true?" another voice from the group asked apprehensively. "Do you see them? The spirits of the kids?" "Perhaps we do not see, but we feel," Henry replied, finding strength in his conviction. "Their innocence haunts this place, a testament to the need for remembrance in the shadows of the past." As he turned to take them toward the next landmark, silence enveloped them again, but not without a lingering tendril of that laughter, now an echo buried in the hearts of all who stood in that haunted village. Eventually, as dusk approached, the group began to share their thoughts with one another, voices weaving an atmosphere filled with reflection and contemplation. But Henry felt something underlying their exchange, an unshakable blur that eclipsed the direct connection to the past. His heart pulsed in synchrony with the village's grief, bespeaking memories inscribed deep within. They moved toward the stilled clock near the church, and as they reached it, Henry felt as though the very ground pulsed with emotion. "This clock," he said, his voice low, "is a symbol of time's cruel holding on. It reminds us of the moment we lost our childhood, our community." But even as he spoke, the laughter returned briefly. The small ghosts of children once again weaved through the shadows, ephemeral and playful, as if beckoning to be seen, felt, remembered. The group turned again, captivated, but as quickly as they melted into existence, they vanished, leaving behind a palpable weight of an absence known deeper than grief. Henry felt a lump rise in his throat as the sun began its descent, casting a warm amber light across the village ruins, but darkening the corners where innocence had fled long ago. Each child's spirit left behind a part of themselves here. They live in the echoes of this place. As they reached the end of the tour, Henry took a deep breath. "It is love lost that binds us," he said to the tourists, "and it is our duty to remember. We honor the lost by telling their stories. We bridge the past with the future." A collective memory is embodied in these ruins, a locket of sorrow and hope. Watching the crowd as they prepared to leave, he could see their eyes glistening with tears, some wiped hastily away. Each person had entered with curiosity and emerged with a heavy heart, carrying with them the burden of the past. They were transformed. The last slant of daylight broke through the trees, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch into eternity. Henry's spirit felt intertwined with those he honored that day. The villagers of Oradour-sur-Glane would not fade into mere history. They would linger in memories and whispers, alive in the stories of those like him who refused to forget. As he took one last glance at the silent ruins, he made a solemn vow to continue sharing their legacy, to ensure that the echoes of innocence would forever resonate, honoring those lost while teaching generations to come. Turning away, Henry knew then that while time could never restore what had been taken, the ghosts of Oradour-sur-Glane would continue to speak, carried by the living, in laughter, tears, and ultimately remembrance. The faded light of dusk draped over the remnants of Oradour-sur-Glane, casting long shadows that danced across the crumbled stones and forgotten rooftops. In this place, silence was a somber constant, underscored only by the whisper of the wind or perhaps the whispers of the past. It was here, among the echoes of anguish locked in the very fabric of the earth, that a team of paranormal investigators arrived, intent on uncovering the spectral secrets that lay hidden within. The group, led by the ambitious and somewhat skeptical Thomas Reeve, gathered their gear outside the remnants of the village's bus station, now reduced to a mere skeleton of wood and stone. "Folks, remember why we're here," Thomas said, his voice steady but tinged with the tremors of unease. "We're not just looking for proof of the supernatural. We want to understand the stories these places hold." Behind him, 4 team members prepared their equipment. Sarah, the tech specialist, adjusted her display panel filled with blinking lights. Liam, the intuitive medium, closed his eyes and reached out, feeling the energy of the location. And Anna and Max, both videographers, set up cameras and tripods to document their findings. With the sun setting behind the remnants of Oradour-sur-Glane, the gravity of their mission pressed heavily on them. Although excitement buzzed in the air, so did an undercurrent of dread, as if even the shadows were warning them to tread carefully. As night descended, the air turned crisp and charged with an unsettling energy. The team split up, wandering into different areas of the village, armed with EMF meters, infrared cameras, and a plethora of digital recording devices. Their primary investigation site was the Église Saint-Martin, where the sounds of grief had reportedly resonated for decades. Thomas stood in the church, its debris-laden floor a canvas of sorrow. "Let's start here," he announced, his voice echoing against the crumbling walls. "This place is where many souls were lost, and it's said to be rife with unexplained phenomena." As Sarah activated her EMF detector, it buzzed and then flickered erratically. She glanced at Thomas, puzzled yet intrigued. "That's strange. It shouldn't be going off like this unless there's a power source nearby." But there isn't. Liam walked deeper into the church, his brow furrowing. "I can feel them," he murmured, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead despite the cool air. "The tension, the despair. It's almost palpable, like they demand to be heard." Suddenly, crackling from Sarah's equipment drew their attention. A chill swept through the air, heavy and suffocating like the weight of a thick fog. Her screen lit up, unexpected spikes in the EMF readings causing the team to gather close. "Look," she exclaimed, pointing to the spikes indicating a significant disturbance. "Something's here." "What are you feeling, Liam?" Thomas asked as he scrutinized the readings, crossing his arms defensively. The hairs on the back of his neck stood at attention. "Fear, anger, pain," Liam whispered, as if conversing with spirits he could sense. "Something happened here. It's still happening." The team moved cautiously, stepping over the shattered remnants of pews and personal belongings of the villagers. As they documented their surroundings, the atmosphere thickened, each heartbeat echoing with the remnants of the past. An eerie silence reigned, punctuated only by the sound of their footsteps against the cold stones. Anna and Max, stationed near La Voiture du Docteur, the infamous doctor's car, captured footage, while sharing whispered impressions of the village's tragic history. Suddenly, Anna gasped, her camera jerking as she stumbled back, almost losing her footing. "Did you guys see that?" she exclaimed, breathless. "See what?" Thomas asked, his brows knitted in concern. "Over there," she pointed breathlessly, her face pale. It was like a figure, a shadow. Figures, real or imagined, are common in places like this. Thomas interrupted, half rolling his eyes but also trying to mask his own fraying nerves. He glanced at his team, who exchanged worried looks, sensing the crack in the air. "Perhaps fatigue is getting to us." Her voice rose over his rationalization. "No, I swear. I saw someone, it felt real." A sudden electrical crackle cut through the air, halting their conversation. All of their devices flickered and blared, causing every heart to race. They looked at one another, exchanging glances of disbelief as the air filled with an inexplicable energy. The sound of footsteps reverberated through the hall, echoing off the walls too many to be imaginary. Overwhelmed, they crowded together, eyes wide and voices trembling. Max glanced at his camera, its lens seemingly caught in a moment frozen in time. "We need to head to the tram tracks," he suggested, desperate for fresh air. "If something is going to happen, we might find answers out there." Reluctantly, the group retreated, making their way through the dense shadows of the remains. As they approached the tram tracks, the chill intensified, leaving them breathless. Max adjusted his camera, eager to capture anything voices, movements, or shadows that might emerge. "Everyone keep your eyes open," Thomas urged, his bravado wavering slightly. Yet as they stood on the abandoned tracks, unease enveloped them, ever thickening, as though the village itself clung to the remnants of its history. Then, without warning, a loud screech pierced the silence, slicing through the thick air. The group jumped, terror painting their faces. The sound emerged from nowhere, brushing against their collective sanity like a phantom whisper escaping a forgotten soul. "What was that?" Anna gasped, her eyes darting anxiously around the shadows. Liam stepped forward, his voice barely a whisper. "They don't want us here, they're warning us." But before they could react further, Sarah's equipment exploded in static, overpowering their senses. Footage on Max's device began to glitch, images distorting as they viewed a split-second moment of movement, a spectral shape looming near a group of spectral children, their laughter intermingling with the cries of despair. Sickened, Thomas watched as the world around him trembled. "This isn't just a game anymore," he muttered, dread coiling in his stomach. As they turned, a rush of cold air met them head-on, accompanied by the feeling of hands grasping at their shoulders. Faces flickered in and out of existence, the remnants of joyful children and anguished adults merging, their screams rising like a tide, crashing against the dam of their reality. Abandoning all notions of reason, the team scattered, a cacophony of screams erupting from their throats as they fled. The weight of despair seemed to pull them toward the ground, the past threatening to engulf them whole. They stumbled over the ruins of the village, crashing into one another in an attempt to escape, leaving their gear behind in a frenzy. As Thomas emerged from the ruins, gasping for breath, he turned to find his teammates gathered near La Voiture du Docteur, wide-eyed and trembling. Their devices lay forgotten, and silence enveloped the group as they realized they were no longer just visitors. They had become part of the tragedy. "It followed us," Sarah stammered, her voice shaky, tears welling in her eyes. "The past, it doesn't want to be forgotten." Max, trembling, held up his camera, inadvertently capturing the darkness settling around them. The recording flickered, revealing spectral moments, children laughing before the scene faded back into chaos. "What do we do now?" he breathed, panic lacing his voice. "Leave. We have to leave," Thomas urged with urgency, but not without realizing they would carry Oradour's weight with them, its scars forever etched in their souls. As the group fled the ominous ruins of Oradour-sur-Glane, the camera still recorded, documenting their disbelief and horror. A poignant reminder that the haunting memories lingered, tirelessly echoing through the hollowed cobblestones of the village. The investigators emerged from the site changed not just by fear, but by the raw, palpable anguish that echoed through their minds. The ghosts of Oradour-sur-Glane etched themselves into their consciousness, heavy and relentless, haunting not just their present but altering their future. In the aftermath, even as they tried to piece together the fragments of what had transpired, they found themselves grappling with a new reality. They could no longer see history as just facts and figures but as living echoes, breathing memories that pushed against the boundaries of time, demanding remembrance. What they had encountered was not just a past feared, but a legacy of grief that implored to be told. "What we witnessed may be beyond comprehension," Thomas admitted to his colleagues during their debrief, his voice low, reflecting the depth of their experience. "But we owe it to those who suffered to tell their stories. We owe it to ourselves, so we never forget." A shared silence enveloped them, and in that stillness lay the determination to share what they had uncovered, ensuring the weight of those eternal ashes echoes of loss would never dim within the ancient stones of Oradour-sur-Glane. In the stillness of Oradour-sur-Glane, where time falters and the air pulsates with the resonance of stories untold, we recognize that the past is never truly buried. The ruins stand sentinel, not just as a memorial to a harrowing tragedy, but as a repository of collective memory. Each stone, each cracked wall, laden with whispers of sorrow and loss. The spirits that linger here remind us that every life snuffed out leaves behind an indelible mark, an echo that reverberates through generations. As we reflect on the stories of Dr. Claire Fontaine, Lucy in her desperate sanctuary, Henry guiding those who seek to understand, and the paranormal investigators confronting the shadows, we bear witness to the multifaceted nature of trauma. Each narrative intertwines, forming a tapestry woven from grief and resilience. The historian who sought knowledge was met with the overwhelming current of emotion that history carries. The mother who fought to protect her children exists in a realm where maternal instinct confronts unspeakable horror. The local guide who shares his memories does so with the understanding that remembrance is an act of healing. In contrast, the investigator's chill of fear reveals the depths to which the past can still reach into the present. These stories highlight the haunting reality that, for some, the scars of Oradour-sur-Glane run far deeper than mere ruins and statistical tragedies. They remind us that the traumas of our predecessors, though decades or even generations removed, can manifest in the lives of those who step forth to engage with their legacies. On modern visitors, both drawn and daunted, the place exerts a powerful gravitational pull. The fascination with the paranormal, combined with the overwhelming urge to honor lost lives, compels us to confront not just the history of Oradour, but our relationship with suffering and memory. The echoes of Oradour-sur-Glane speak boldly against the silence that often shrouds difficult truths. They demand we listen, learn, and remember. Each echo tells us that forgetting allows the seeds of similar atrocities to fester and thrive, while remembering cultivates understanding and compassion. We are urged to acknowledge the courage of those who survived, the innocence of those lost, and the collective responsibility we must embrace to ensure such darkness never falls again. As we conclude this haunting journey through the echoes of Oradour-sur-Glane, we invite you to carry these stories with you. Let them serve as reminders that our history is both joyful and painful, woven into the very fabric of our existence. The stories shared here are not merely remnants of the past. They are living legacies that inform our present and shape our future. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time and remembrance. If the echoes of Oradour-sur-Glane have touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Ghost Stories of the Battles for more tales that reveal the unseen layers of our history. Let us honor the past together, nurturing awareness in the hope of healing and preventing the repetition of those darkest days. For in every echoed truth lies the potential for a brighter tomorrow.